The entrance to the records office turned out to be locked. "Hurry up and get us inside," Scourge shouted. He wanted to get the information and get out. More important at the moment, he knew the office would probably be climate-controlled. Too weary to nod, Satchel leaned against the wall and punched in the security code. The door didn't open. "Try again," Scourge pressed, thinking that in his weakened state Satchel might have hit a wrong key. "Be careful this time." With painstaking precision, Satchel tapped out the code a second time. The roar of the engines drowned out any sound, but Scourge could see the control panel turn red. The words "Access denied" flashed on the display. Satchel's mouth moved in an inaudible curse, and he tried for a third time. But Scourge already knew it was hopeless. The door required a different code than the one they had used to get past the exterior entrance. Scourge raised his lightsaber and yanked Satchel out of the way. He heard the man shouting, but couldn't make out the words. Gripping the hilt of his lightsaber with both hands, he brought the blade crashing down on the panels, and carving a long, deep furrow in the wall behind it. The door sprang open, and suddenly Scourge's eardrums were nearly shattered by a long, whooping siren. He grabbed Satchel by the collar and tossed him into the room, silently cursing himself for making such a foolish mistake. "Slice into the network, and get what you need. Hold off security." Satchel didn't waste time on answer. He began frantically typing at one of the terminals. Scourge could feel the cool air spilling out of the records office and washing over him. He elected a few seconds to bask in its luxury, then turned to face the inevitable enemy onslaught, determined not to make any more missteps. Two hovering patrol drones similar to the one he had dispatched earlier were the first to arrive on the scene, swooping down to floor level from one of the catwalks near the eastern wall. Scourge charged, moving with the supernatural speed of the Force. The drones opened fire. Scourge never changed course, relying on his armor to absorb the blaster bolts. One of the bolts narrowly missed his ear. Two more slammed into his chest. He felt the impact, but it wasn't enough even to knock him off stride. He dropped into a forward somersault as the droids unleashed a second volley, knowing they would be targeting his exposed face and head. The bolts flew harmlessly over him as he tucked, rolled, and came back up on his feet, finally close enough to retaliate. But the patrol drones were not made for close combat. A series of vicious cuts with his lightsaber put a quick end to the encounter. The droids fell to the ground in a shower of sparks, their spindly legs twitching for a few seconds before they shut down completely. Scourge turned his attention to the next two patrol drones. He dispatched the first by hurling his lightsaber at it, knocking it from the air with a single well-placed throw before it even got close enough to use its internally mounted blaster. The second took evasive action, dropping down behind the conveyor belt and a line of assembly droids. It skimmed along the ground, closing the gap until it popped up from behind its cover so it could fire at blank range. Scourge made sure it never got the chance. Reaching at the drone with the invisible hand of the Force, he slammed it down to the ground. Its legs snapped off and went flying, its exterior hull cracked in multiple places. Several of the welded plates tore loose. All the lights on its body went dim. The alarm sirens were still howling. It wouldn't be long before security droids stationed in other sections of the plant showed up. If the droids kept arriving in small groups of 2 or even 3, Scourge knew he could hold off several more waves at least. If they arrived in greater numbers, he was going to have a problem. He was breathing heavily, the sweat so thick on his red skin he felt as if he had been swimming in the ocean. The Force had sustained him so far, protecting him from the worst of the heat and allowing him to move faster than his enemies could react. But he could draw on it for only so long before exhaustion set in. Already he could feel himself tiring. Satchel had to locate the information soon, or they'd have to retreat empty-handed. He saw 3 patrol drones enter from one of the passages at the north end of the manufacturing plant. 2 more were moving in from the east. Grimacing, Scourge tightened his grip on his lightsaber and prepared to do battle yet again. Instead of closing in on him, however, the droids kept their distance. The reason for their puzzling behavior became clear a moment later, when a massive assault droid lumbered into view. Like the patrol drones, it had the grey and orange finish common to all UDM models. But that was where the similarities ended. 3 meters tall and covered in thick armor plating, the security walked on a pair of hinged metal legs, each as thick around a scourge's waist. Its armed body was thick and wide, 2 meters on every side, topped by a pair of heavy blaster cannons instead of a head. The droid broke into a run toward him, moving fast despite its bulk. At the same time, it opened fire with both cannons. Scourge leapt for cover behind the nearest conveyor belt, unwilling to trust his armor against such overwhelming firepower. The security droid didn't let up. The bolt ripped into the conveyor belt, and the hapless assembly droids lined up along it. Crouched low, Scourge ran back toward a nearby stairwell leading up to the narrow catwalks that ran above the manufacturing floor. A shower of twisted, scorched metal rained down on his back. Bits and pieces of those assembly droids unfortunate enough to get in the way of the cannon fire. From the corner of his eye he saw the patrol drone swooping in to join the fray. Because of the engines and sirens, he couldn't hear the assault droid coming after him, but he could feel its heavy footsteps vibrating the floor. Reaching the stairwell, he took the steps 3 at a time. The assault droid continued to fire, but it wasn't designed to take out aerial targets. The bulky armor cladding limited vertical range of motion. From the floor it couldn't get the proper angle for a clear shot toward the ceiling. Its bolts ricocheted off the reinforced metal of the catwalk safety rails and floor, but none even came close to its intended target. Scourge's elevated position on the catwalk didn't help against the patrol drones, however. Their repulsors allowed them to rise up to the level of the catwalks with ease, with the 5 hovering patrol drones closing in on him. Scourge raced toward the vats of molten metal in the center of the room. The catwalk he was on paused right beside the nearest vat. As he drew closer, the heat became almost unbearable. He felt his skin blistering, but he ignored the pain and continued onward. The drones were rapidly closing in. 2 of them swooped in from the side, trying to cut him off. Their path took him directly over the vat, and Scourge seized that opportunity. Drawing on his rapidly dwindling reserves, he used the force to knock one of the drones off course, sending it careening sideways into its partner. The mid-vehicle wasn't hard enough to inflict any direct damage, but it caused both to spin out of control. Unable to right themselves in time, they tumbled down into the vat, where the bubbling molten metal closed over them. The entrance